Big fluff.
No! Tell me you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it. Say you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it. Why can't you say it, Shannon? Why can't you say you like my hat? Why can't you say you like my suit? I've earned this. I've done well.
Did Joel Murphy as Annam Dom?
Top of the morning to you. I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And it'd be March, and that'd be the month of St. Paddy's Day, you bleeding bastard. And that means we're talking about movies with people doing bad Irish accents and about bad aspects of Irish culture and Irish stereotypes. And we're starting with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in the Ron Howard directed Far and Away.
Was two things. One, first of all, I'm not going to do this accent the whole time. I'm just not sustaining
what accent? What are you on about? You silly boss.
You have the red hair, so you can get away with it. But
that's fair. Yeah, Joel Murphy.
But yeah, a couple things at the top. One, just St. Patrick. While we're getting out of the way, we're doing Irish movies. No snakes in Ireland. Let's just get that out of the way. There were never snakes. It was a religious thing. They were druids. It was actually just Christianity. He just did. I was so disappointed when I learned that I was like, oh, the snakes are a metaphor for like non-Christians. Okay.
Yeah, the snakes were a metaphor for pagans.
Yeah, cool.
Dope.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean religious figures of British ancestry did terrible things to places they conquered, even in Ireland?
Yeah. Man, I don't know if people have done this, but if you Google like England and Ireland and their history together, it's not good.
No,
it's kind of crazy. And if you go to the north of Ireland, it's real problematic there.
There's a period that's so bad that all they can call it is the Troubles.
Yeah, that encapsulated it. It's the Troubles.
It's just the trouble. It's like that,
which is also so Irish.
Oh, so it's just the Troubles, over in Derry.
So the war and bombings and death. What do you guys call that? Oh, there were troubles.
Trouble. And their bombs and their guns. It's in your head, Paul.
Oh, man. I did, by the way, I think a good way to start talking about this movie is I saw this and I just want to believe it's true, that apparently this movie has a cult following in Ireland because Irish people love to watch it because of how dumb the accents are.
I think it's the equivalent of British people loving Dick Van Dyke's performance in Mary Poppins.
Yeah, there's a lot of accents and they are of varying degrees of good, I would say, in this movie. I don't know that there's a lot of Irish people in this movie.
There's Cole Meany.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The Irishest of Irish people.
Yeah, they got one super Irish man and thought like that by the transitive property of being Irish, that would carry the rest of the movie. Look, I want to be careful how I phrase this, but as an actor and a performer, I enjoy Tom Cruise.
100%.
Yeah. I want to be clear about how I state that, though. I enjoy him as an actor and a performer. But
so what you're saying is you're a big fan of Tom Cruise and all that comes with it.
No, definitely not saying that. But he might be culprit number one in this movie.
Oh, he's definitely, there's no might about it. He is, just the fact that my Irish accent brought about from no training is markedly better than his, that he had a dialect coach for.
Yeah. I did some digging. Apparently his dialogue coach was the Lucky Charms mascot. So I think that oh no, Tom. Oh, Tommy. No, you got to play it up. They won't know you're Irish.
They got to know that You got to treat every line like they're after your pot of gold. They're always after your Lucky Charms, Tom.
He is playing a cartoon leprechaun in this movie, which is not a joke about his height. That's just the accent that he's doing.
I'm, however, making the joke about his height because he's short.
He is very short. And
no, it is delightful that this movie has a cult following in Ireland for the varying degrees of caliber of Irish accent. Most notably, I think it's Tom Cruise. I also learned in researching for this movie that the term for a bad Irish accent in Ireland is Oirish. Oirish.
Yeah.
Oirish.
Irish.
And I'm one, thrilled that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And two, mad at myself that I didn't know it until 2 days ago.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's so perfect.
Like, as you said at the top, I mean, it's, my last name is Murphy. I have, in case people couldn't tell from the opening, I've gotten recently really into doing Duolingo for Irish. I watched the Kneecap movie, and that really made a strong point for how that language was dying. And it fired me up. And I was like, I should learn this language. This is where, the Murphys are from. And there's times that I just love Irish people so much. That they really are the best.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I absolutely love, it's called the Try Channel on YouTube, and it's Irish people just tasting food.
Oh yeah. No, it's good.
It's amazing. They're all delights. And yeah, it's phenomenal, and you should watch it after you're done watching this.
Yeah. But I want to be clear, too. Like I said, my family originally from Ireland. They came here. I will say, like, cards on the table, top of the show. It did, from what I understand, I've talked to my family. My grandma Murphy got really into doing our ancestry and linking it back. And I can say it happened exactly like this movie. That this is completely accurate. Perfect. To the Irish experience, from what I understand. This is definitely how it worked. It was my, great grandfather and grandmother, when they came over, he was poor and his house had burned down, and she was an aristocrat. And they had a will they or won't they thing in a brothel. And then he won the land in a horse race.
That's why my family also settled in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. That's where we all ended up there.
No, this, yeah.
I mean, you're a history teacher. Do you want to touch on the parts of this that are true, which is like vaguely the end?
All right. So, one, Irish people were met with discrimination from the founding of America up through World War I-ish.
Yeah.
That Irish need not apply was a very common sign on employment offices and things like that. And one of the reasons that they built the railroads is that was the only job they could get because it was the lowest paying and the most dangerous. And that's the same reason that Chinese immigrants largely built the railroads in the West Coast for identical reasons. That they couldn't get hired anywhere else, and it was the lowest paying and most dangerous work, and that was all they could get. So that is accurate. Also accurate, Tom Cruise has a mean left hook.
Yeah. No, dude can box. Like, that's legit.
Yeah. But no, the land rush that happened when the Homestead Act was first passed was a thing, and there was another one also several decades later in the late 1898 or whatever it was when this movie took place. Again, trying to get people to settle this wide open space in the middle of the country. Like, that is a real thing. And if IMDb is to be believed, 3 of Ron Howard's 4 grandparents were part of said land rush.
They weren't. Sorry, I just the temptation to be a narrator.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this so there are aspects of truth in this movie. But this movie is also absurd.
It's also funny, by the way, that because we didn't talk about Nicole Kidman's accent, and I both think that it's good, but also it's wrong. So that's funny as well, that like she's doing a good version of the accent that they told her to do, but her character wouldn't have actually sounded like that she would have sounded more British.
Right. That she was an aristocratic Dubliner who at the time would have sounded like British people sounded, or English people, I should say, would have sounded English rather than Irish. But she does a very good period accurate Dublin accent that she would not have had.
Which also, for all the other American people listening with us, and don't feel bad if you didn't know this, but both in Ireland and England, there are different accents. There isn't just an Irish accent and a British accent.
There are actually more variants to British English accents than there are American English accents. Mm-hmm. And Britain is much smaller in both size and people. But but that is, and that's not like an exaggeration or anything. It is an objective fact. And it's not because of linguistic blurring as a result of cultural homogenization, which is also a thing, because regional dialects are disappearing everywhere because of things like mass media, et cetera, et cetera. But no, there are more varied accents in the British Isles than there are in the United States of America. To a significant, actually to a pretty significant degree.
We just have like three in America. We have the like newscaster, neutral
there's
American,
that non-regional diction. Yeah.
Non-regional diction, which I think you and I both mostly fall into, I would say.
More or less, yeah. With a few rare. Like you say things like wolf, which is very mid-Atlantic. You drop the L in wolf.
Yeah, there's definitely things. But yeah, we mostly have that. And then there's a southern one, and there's whatever my wife and people from. Like,
there's that mid-Atlantic.
The mid-Atlantic speak
Tuesday.
Like. Yeah,
Water.
Exactly.
Oh, you can't forget the best accent. Boston.
Yeah.
That's a Boston
by the
accent.
way, I did, and obviously, which is our version of the Irish accent, of course, I guess. But no, I did, and rest in peace to Mr. Foster, who was my middle school history teacher, who taught us all about George Washington.
Washington.
He was great. I truly an awesome guy. But yeah, I did. He said Warsh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's there are variants in the Southern accent, and there's Appalachian accents, but like pretty much west of Kansas, there isn't a whole lot of linguistic variance. Mm-hmm. Eric Singer, who is a dialect coach in Hollywood and does a lot of YouTube videos, points out how there isn't much variance. The further west you get a lot of more homogenized accent.
Yes. And also, I guess just by and large, British people are better at doing our accent than we're better at doing British accents in movies and television.
Yeah. I would say the British aren't as good as they think they are.
No, and when they're bad, it's really funny, for sure. It's when you get that guy who's in a movie and he talks like this because he's British and he thinks he's doing an American accent.
Yeah,
I like that guy. That guy's really fun. The sneaky thing and the thing that British people aren't willing to admit is that actually Australians are the best at doing American accents, because you will never know someone's Australian until they're famous. And then you're like, wait, really? Margot Robbie? What? She does like 3 different American accents?
Toni Collette is Australian?
That's what I'm saying.
What?
Sneaky Australians like can have decades long careers before you ever find out that they're not American. And so they are the ones that are actually the best at it.
Even Jacob Elordi, who I would not describe as a particularly good actor, does a phenomenal American accent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's a better Elvis than that other guy that never stopped being Elvis. That's my hot take.
Austin Butler. Austin Butler wasn't bad, though.
Austin Butler wasn't bad. I don't like that movie, but I actually do think Elordi was a better.
No, Elordi was better.
Elvis.
I think you're right about that. No, Austin Butler was we watched that movie for the podcast, didn't we? Or no, we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Or
did we or didn't we? We definitely have both seen it and talked about it. I don't remember if we recorded it.
We did an Elvis month last year.
Yeah.
But I don't think we actually did Elvis. I know I hate Baz Luhrmann as a director. I'm sure he's a fine human being, but I dislike all of his movies.
Look,
especially Elvis.
Baz, if you're listening, you're terrible at making movies, and I haven't liked any of them either. But I do wear sunscreen, and I think of you when I do it. So
No,
in
that's,
that regard,
I was wearing sunscreen anyway because look at me.
well, same,
But,
yeah.
But no, the best thing he did was that Everyone's Free to Wear Sunscreen video
It's
from
good.
1999.
And that, like, the one where they put the music behind it, yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, if you have no idea what we're talking about, go seek that out because that is delightful.
And then immediately followed up with Chris Rock's No Sex in the Champagne Room.
Yes, there is a Chris Rock Weird Al style parody of the sunscreen video.
And it's also great.
Yeah, it's equally as good. They're good companion pieces for sure.
They really encapsulate what summer of 99 was like.
Yeah, and in both cases, I've taken that advice to heart, and I've lived my life following those bits of advice.
I still believe there's nothing wrong with cornbread.
Exactly. Yeah, there
Ain't
isn't.
nothing wrong with that.
Nope. Anyway, so this movie is directed by Ron Howard, who.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise, and Ron Howard's all first appearance on the pod.
No, that's not true. Because Tom Cruise appeared because we did Mission Impossible 2.
Oh, we did do Mission Impossible 2. That's right.
And Nicole Kidman appeared because she's in that Nick Cage movie where they have the home invasion.
Oh, God, that's right.
But I think it shockingly is Ron Howard's
Howard.
first appearance.
I
Yeah.
will say that Ron Howard very quietly has put together an incredibly high batting average as a filmmaker.
Does he?
But like, no one ever thinks of him as like a really good director, but then you're like, wait, no, Backdraft is a ton of fun. Backdraft is a ton of fun.
I think you just like Backdraft. I think
Apollo 13 is great. Apollo 13 is legit great. And
I think you're
that.
thinking of Rob Reiner. I think when you teed that up, what you were actually thinking of is Rob Reiner because you're like, whoa, he did Princess Bride and then he
a
also
Few
did
Good Men.
And A Few Good Men and Spinal Tap. Like, what a career.
Well, no, not like but Ron Howard has more good movies than you think. I will say that.
But he also has more bad movies than you'd think.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I just look, I'm trying to be nice to Rob Reiner because he's
Ron
lived in
Howard.
clinch. I said Rob Reiner. See, I'm thinking of Rob Reiner. But I'm trying to be nice to Ron Howard because he has lived in his brother's shadow his entire life. And I can't imagine how difficult that would be to just like be the less charismatic, less handsome Howard brother. And I think that probably haunted him. And I think it's really nice that Clint continued to, as a favor, appear
In his movies.
in
Like
all
this
of his
one.
movies. Even though he could have been out doing Ice Cream Man 2, he was making time to be in Ron's little Apollo, movies or whatever.
One of my favorite, like Clint Howard, one legend.
I
Objectively.
love Clint. To be clear, I know I'm being snarky about it. I love Clint Howard so much. I really do.
But my favorite thing about him is that there was a point where people actually kind of cared about the MTV Movie Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave out sort of a mock Lifetime Achievement Award where they awarded Godzilla and Chewbacca and people like that. And then they gave the award to Clint Howard. And his acceptance speech was so sincere and so genuine, they retired the award. They're like, this is better than, we're never going to get better than this.
Yeah,
That's
which
it.
I think, if I remember, Godzilla refused to show up. So I think it's nice that Clint even went to the ceremony.
Yeah, but Godzilla did pick up his Razzie that year.
Yeah, he did. He did, but Matthew Broderick failed to appear alongside him.
Anyways, far and away. We kind of danced. So I think I want to start before we really get into sort of the nitty gritty of the plot and say after the accents, I think one of the big things to malign about this movie is the pacing makes no sense.
No, it's a weird movie because it's supposed to be an epic, but it doesn't really have an epic feel. It just is kind of a series of like 3 vignettes almost. There's
like each act, for lack of a better word, probably could have been a movie on its own.
Yes. Which to be clear, if people if you're following along with this, but you haven't seen the movie, or you saw it a long time ago, like I had before we did it for this podcast, and we're like, I've definitely seen this, but then watched it and we're like, I don't remember 95% of this movie.
Yeah.
But the first part is in Ireland. Tom Cruise, it opens with his dad dying very slowly. And then they come and they owe money on their house. And so the rich, guy who owns the land that they're behind on the house, like sends his goon to burn down the place. And then Tom Cruise goes to kill the guy for burning down his house. And instead, cartoonishly, sort of Elmer Fudd style, blows himself up. And then this is going to sound like I'm making this up, but then he's naked in a bed with a pot covering his goods. And Nicole Kidman sneaks a peek. And apparently whatever she saw under there, she was down for life. Like that was it. Well, in the movie. Yes. And then she wants to go to America with him under the idea that she's like, well, you lost your land here, but they're giving away land in America. And then that act 1 ends with an almost duel that she saves him from, and they go to America.
And it starts Tom Cruise's love affair with running after objects that he should be slower than.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He runs down a horse and buggy.
Yes. But he didn't really quite have the like Tom Cruise run. No,
he didn't have the knife hands. He didn't have the T-1000
he hadn't perfected.
Hands.
Which shout out, by the way. I love that he's getting truly recognized for that. And if people aren't watching Severance, they should be. But I heard Adam Scott specifically name drop Tom Cruise as a big influence for episode 1 of season 2 of Severance for running in a suit down a hallway. And he's right. He's the GOAT.
He's the archetype.
Yeah. And if you watch, Adam Scott does these hands like when he runs. So like, yeah, that's how you learn. You learn from the best. And I can't wait for Adam Scott to hang off the side of an airplane in his next film.
Yeah.
Zoolander 3. I assume now that he and Stiller have this juice, that's what they're going to do.
Yep. So Act 2.
Thank you, Ira Glass. Act 2 of This American Life. Hey, it does actually work. Is that they get to America, and then basically, I think Nicole Kidman goes to work at the Moulin Rouge, while Tom Cruise is a bare knuckle boxer, exclusively fighting men twice his size.
Yes, because men are exclusively twice his size.
Well, that's true. I guess he's fighting normal sized men.
He's fighting adults.
But yeah, so he becomes a bare knuckle boxer. She because when they get to America, all of her stuff is immediately stolen.
Like, she has a collection of silver spoons that's going to pay their way out to the Midwest.
Metaphor.
It immediately gets stolen, and the guy that's going to help them out gets murdered right in front of them.
Mm-hmm. It goes.
That's how their journey
quick
to America starts.
Yes, which, I mean, in 2025 feels correct. So maybe they nailed that part. But yeah, so then he's a boxer. She works in the brothel, and he's telling people that she's his sister and they're sharing a room in the brothel, and they have the hots for each other, but they're not really admitting it.
Yep.
And that's Act 2. And then it ends with him taking a bunch of prize money to fight a very large man who's Italian. And
he's fighting Bruno Sammartino, basically.
Yes. And that guy just beats the hell out of him. And
after he gets distracted because a guy's groping Nicole Kidman.
Which is her job, which like
as a burlesque dancer.
like, that's the thing is it's not okay. I'm not endorsing it, but like it is what she's signed on to do essentially. But he's jealous, and she only did it to make him jealous
because he had also been canoodling with a burlesque dancer.
Yes. And so then that act ends with them in a farmhouse where they're about to bang each other. And then a guy shows up with us.
Come home.
The people come home and
shoot Nicole
her.
Kidman in the back.
So both Act 1, well, it doesn't end, but Act 1 revolves around him blowing himself up with a gun. Act 2 revolves around her getting shot. So that's and then he dumps her off with her family.
Yeah. And something that didn't occur to me until just now. Both Act 1 and Act 2 end with a lot of fog.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, where it's almost like Vaseline is smeared on the glass too.
Yeah.
And so then he leaves her with her family who has now come to America. Also, a lot of houses burning down. Their house burns down. So they come to America. And he leaves them with them because they have the money to save her life. And then he goes off to work on the railroad. And then Act 3 is a horse race.
Yeah, Act 3 is the Great Land Rush.
Yeah. And they're reunited there, that they both, because he knows she'll be there and she hopes he'll be there. And the evil guy what's that guy's name? that actor. That
Greg
handsome
from Dharma and Greg.
Yeah, Greg from Dharma and Greg.
Stephen Chase is the character. Thomas Gibson is the actor.
Yeah, yes. Who also, random fact, all three of these people also appear in Eyes Wide Shut together.
Yeah. So there's a sentence in the Wikipedia synopsis that bugs the hell out of me, and I want to unpack it. Can you indulge me in that?
Yeah.
So in the third act, it says, during the land race, Joseph outpaces everyone, catching up to Shannon and Steven. Shannon being Nicole Kidman, Steven being Thomas Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he's outpacing everyone, how is there anyone for him to catch up to?
No, that's true. Yeah, accurate.
And then he gets crushed by a horse, but saved by Nicole Kidman's love.
And magic?
And maybe magic.
Which, I don't know how you reacted, but like I said, I know I saw this movie when I was young. I didn't remember much about it. But I had a moment when he was crushed by that horse, which I did not remember happened in the movie, where I was like, I have never been more confident in my life that this character will live because this is a Ron Howard movie. And there is zero chance my man Ron Howard is sending this audience home unhappy. Like, he's waking up, they're getting the land. And then insanely, it just ends with them putting the flag in the ground. And then it says
no postscript.
No postscript. We never get to see them in the house. Like, I would have guessed maybe they ran out of money that we would have gotten a last shot of them in a house with like a bunch of kids or something.
One would have assumed.
But no, we're hard out on just their close up of their hands, both of them holding the same flag and jamming it into the ground over the corpse of Greg from Dharma and Greg.
Yeah.
Who Tom Cruise has just beaten to death with his bare hands.
Yes.
And yeah, then we're out of the movie. They live happily ever after, at least for a few years. And then they probably have a highly publicized divorce. And, he goes on to have weird relationships from there. And she ends up with a country singer.
Yep. Yeah, this movie is treacly melodrama pap. And the pacing makes no sense. But it looks pretty, and the John Williams score is great.
It is, but it's
forgettable.
Look, I mean, I was going to say, like, John Williams, unimpeachable, to be clear. Like, he's obviously, first of all, if you ask people to name a composer, most would probably name him. He's unequivocally the most famous. He's the most accomplished. He's won the most awards for sure. He's been nominated the most times. But like, and I don't think he did anything wrong in this, but this score is like very sweeping in a forgettable way and in a way that I thought was like too much, honestly. You know, and I'm sure it's what he was told to do, to be clear. And I think he did his job, but I didn't really like the score, if I'm being honest.
I would say it was at best unremarkable, but like unmistakably John Williams.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then, but couldn't hum a tune right now if you paid me.
Also, to be clear, unmistakably John Williams means it's also possible that Alan Silvestri might have done it.
Or there's a non-zero chance that it's Michael Giacchino, even though this movie was made in the 90s.
Yeah. And that's as deep as we'll go on our composer.
Wait. No, I remember one. Dun 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 dun. That was from Far and Away, right?
No. But I do remember when they were on the boat and they were coming to America that there was that one thing that he did that was like da 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 da.
I don't think that's there was no,
No,
this
that's
one I
Batman.
definitely remember. They were it was like when they were fighting in the fighting scenes, and it went bum bum ba ba bum ba ba bum ba ba bum bum ba ba bum ba ba bum ba ba bum bum ba ba bum ba bum ba bum 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 ba ba bum.
I'm gonna be honest, that doesn't even sound like that's John Williams.
It's not. It isn't.
Pretty sure
nor
that's
is it
Gonna
Alvin
Fly Now.
Silvestri, nor is it Michael Giacchino.
No, pretty sure that's the song Gonna Fly Now. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
that's-
sure that's who is that? That's gonna drive me crazy.
It's,
But who's the composer?
Jim Conti.
Bill Conti.
Or Bill Conti. Bill Conti.
Yeah, thank you. It's Bill Conti. Yeah. Yes. But yeah, I mean, John Williams is great. Obviously.
He's the
great.
best.
Also, Alan Silvestri is great. I don't want to seem like I was dismissing him.
And
I'm
so
just
is
like,
Michael Giacchino.
like, just to be clear, Silvestri like did Back to the Future, which I think is a great score, sincerely, but he was hired because they wanted him to do a John Williams score. So that wasn't a negative. I just want to be clear. I don't want any Silvestri heads to come at me in the comments. I think he's great. He wrote the Avengers theme.
Yeah.
He wrote the Avengers theme. That's it. Like, he could retire on that.
But yeah, this not John Williams' best work.
No. And I mean, the man's done 8,000 films, so they're not all.
He's
gonna
done
be great.
most of them.
And to be fair, now he's still getting nominated now for like Star Wars movies and stuff. And I don't even think he's writing them anymore. I actually think ChatGPT is just writing
this
Star
is
Wars
entirely open AI. That's just write a John Williams-esque sweeping epic score.
But yeah, he's earned the right. And Star Wars is my favorite of his music. And then I love how good the original trilogy is. And then he came back with Duel of the Fates for the prequel trilogy, which felt like it always should have existed.
Yeah. I think my favorite individual, and I know we've talked about this before, I think my favorite individual John Williams piece is the Indiana Jones March.
It's good. It is good.
But I think for like a, like beginning to end score, it's the Star Wars movies. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I don't know, but real silver linings. The boxing scenes were good.
The boxing scenes were good. I thought they were the best shot in the movie. Like, there's a little bit of like, I don't know if a younger Guy Ritchie like watched these. I feel like they're not as good as like a Guy Ritchie boxing scene, but they reminded me of him a little bit. Like the way that they're lit.
I like with the little kid drawing the line on the ground, it's like toe the line, and then they fight. And like they looked real. Like they didn't feel like cinematic boxing matches. Because there's a lot of body shots, which was very true of like bare knuckle boxing, because it hurts to hit people in the face.
Right. I thought there's a really good shot of one of the thick boys that he fights where they do like a slow motion and he punches the guy in the side and you actually see the side, like the guy's muscles jiggle and ripple. That was really nice. No, the boxing scenes I think are unequivocally the best filmed stuff in the movie. I
mean, the land rush is also really like that is the famous bit of the movie.
I would also say, I mean, obviously the land rush is big, but I would say for me, I would actually kind of broadly just willing to stake that, much like Star Wars, I thought the middle chapter was my favorite. That I actually think that when he was boxing and when she was working at the club, that was the most interesting stretch of the movie to me. And I think personally, I would have been fine if we cut the other parts.
Yeah,
to spend more time there.
I didn't care about the first act really at all.
No, the first act is the weakest.
And I don't even think you learned anything that you needed to know for the second act in the first act, that if it had gone away, far and away, it would have been fine.
Yeah, I think like his house could have burned down. He could have gone to talk to the guy and instead met his daughter. And then we could have smash cut to a boat. Like, honestly, I think you could have accomplished it in 5 minutes of just, I was going to murder your, and maybe never tells her, like, I was showing up to fight or murder your dad, and I met you and we just fell in love. And
the no pun intended, but like the third act seems rushed.
Yes. Well, because it's not really earned, in the movie. It's just, it felt like they needed a big third act and they just planted that in there.
It feels like a different movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if throughout the course of the second act, if they had like made it seem like they constantly wanted to get out, they constantly wanted to get free land, but it seemed like they'd all like settled in to their life in New York City.
Yeah.
And kind of forgotten about the land plan.
No, when he's a boxer, he's doing pretty well. I'd say he's like middle class. He's not rich, but he has like throw around money and he's famous in town and he's respected. And the truth is, like, she goes to work in the brothel because she's jealous of the girl that's flirting with him. But like, she doesn't even need to work. He's making enough money to support both of them and they're falling in love. I think you could have just stayed there and had them settle in New York. And he could even lose the fight. And then you do a third act about him having to build himself up after that.
As if he was some kind of like Cinderella man.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
But no, like this movie is really well shot. Like it looks really good. I think that like we said, I think the biggest problem is like the pacing and the narrative choices. But visually, like, I think no notes. It's good. I like it.
Well, and it's weird now to see Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman together. But I think it's important to remember that they were a big celebrity, like it couple at the time, and that they are genuine. They're both good actors and they both have a good natural charisma with each other in this movie and are very charming with each other. Like you see like, oh, okay, I understand how these two people ended up together.
Yeah, no, it does make a lot of sense. That other than the accent, the rest of Tom Cruise's acting in this is very good, I think.
Yeah, it's tough because you can't.
It's hard to separate them, but
well, and I was going to say you can't have him not do the accent, but I would argue that Tom Cruise should never do an accent in a movie. Like if we could somehow work that out, that honestly, if he did it in the beginning and then he was just like, now that I'm in America, I think I'm going to try to do an American accent. And then he just did it. You'd be mad at first. There was a show
really quick.
Yeah, there was a show on USA Network where it was like a spy show. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but I used to watch it. Bruce Campbell was in it. And I liked watching it, but I remember watching the pilot episode. They had a character who was supposed to be Irish and she was Irish in the pilot. And then when they did the second episode, she literally just spoke in an American accent. And then another character was like, what happened to your accent? And she was like, well, if I'm going to stay in America, I think I should practice my American accent. And then they never did it again. And I loved it so much. It was very clear that someone was like, we're going to buy this show, but you got to stop.
But here's our only note.
I wish I could remember what the name of that show was, but
Breaking Bad.
That show was called Breaking Bad, and that the woman who did the Irish accent, that was actually it was Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons.
I was trying to roll through who the funniest answer was, and that's the one that came to me. So
when you said Jesse, I thought you were going to go Jesse Pinkman.
Either way, I think, both solid choices.
Burn Notice. That woman, Giancarlo Esposito.
Burn Notice. By the way, that was the name of the
show's Burn Notice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. That's a fun fact about the show Burn Notice.
Which is why you listen to this podcast. Is for
it's
fun
a little
facts
bonus
about
thing.
Burn
I
Notice.
think if I've read a lot of the comments on YouTube, and I think a lot of people have asked, and we've listened. They were like, "When are you guys going to talk about Burn Notice?"
Yeah, which is a good time to mention that this is the final episode of Silver Linings Playback, and now it's just BNP, Burn Notice Playback.
Yeah, look, the show, as we all know, it ran from 2007 to 2013. There's 111 episodes, and we're going to start at episode 1. We're going to talk about that accent, then we're going to get to episode 2. And we're going to talk about how she doesn't do that accent anymore. And then, I guess we'll talk about the Burn Notice or whatever.
Episodes we're going to talk about as well.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the show, in every episode, there's a point where they're like, hey, you're about to get burned. That's like the famous catchphrase that Bruce Campbell says.
Hey, and I noticed you're about to get burned.
That's right. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I watched it. He says, I've noticed that you're about to get burned.
Gold.
Yeah. They can't all be, this is my boomstick. I mean, sometimes, later in your career.
They can't all be hail to the king, baby.
Exactly.
No, this movie is, I would say, probably not worth a rewatch.
Unless you're Irish and you're doing it ironically. And then in that case, do it.
Yes. If you're here for the Irish of it,
it's good.
It's great.
It will not disappoint.
It is as Irish as it gets.
On an Irish level. For sure. I do, by the way, I have, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say, but I do have one piece of Silver Lining that I do want to get to before, because this was a fun thing that I read. There's a special thanks in the end credits that if you look closely, and that special thanks is to Fungy the Dingle Dolphin, which is a dolphin that lives in Ireland that would pop up. And so basically, I believe it was in the 80s, it started, where it got separated from the other dolphins and it was close to the shore. And it just became this local legend celebrity dolphin that was really friendly and would come up to people. And the dolphin insanely lived 40 years until 2020 was the last time it was spotted. But it was a big local legend in the area, and it got a special shout out in this film, and that made me happy because I looked it up and I read about this dolphin.
Yeah,
and
Fungy the Dingle Dolphin is like a borderline cryptid in its fantasy around it. It's amazing.
Yeah, so do yourself a favor, skip this movie and just go watch some YouTube clips or something.
But we are going to do an Irish movie about Fungy the Dingle Dolphin. It's going to be no actual Irish people, all bad American accent attempts at the Irish accent. And
we're going to do it where Fungy talks in a bad accent. We're going to hire Chris Pratt.
Show and Begora. It's me, Fungy the Dingle Dolphin. And I'm here to grant your wishes. Toy, 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 toy. Toy, toy, toy.
It's basically just Free Willy, but with a lot more reductive Irish stereotypes. That's which
was really the thing that was missing from Free Willy, if we're being perfectly honest. They're going to come after Fungy's Lucky Charms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which we're going to, and hey, look, General Mills, I want to say, if you're listening,
holler at your boys.
Holler at your boys. Slán Gofoil.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashcan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.